stuff. Nenshi's running an election. Interesting. X algorithms changing. We're going to start there because it's more censorship. All assets are attacking Poilievre and Dr. Peterson, and Mark Miller calls both of them greasy walruses. And I thought, what? What is that? What? How does that even make sense? Is that what we call conservatives in Canada? Are they walruses? Because I mean, like, you could call somebody a greasy donkey or a greasy elephant or something like that, and that might make sense because the Conservative Party, or excuse me, the Republicans are elephants. The GOP is an elephant, right? And the representative of the Democrats is a donkey. So I can understand that. I just don't get the walrus thing. And maybe it's just me who doesn't know certain things. And Danielle Smith wants to use the drug crisis to justify throwing people into treatment. And I feel like I'm all for stopping the government from handing out free drugs. But I'm not for the government rounding people up and throwing them into treatment facilities if they think that you're sick. What happens if they decide racism is an illness and they need to fix you, clean you, tune you up for that? Or what if they say, if you're unvaccinated, you have to go to this treatment facility? What happens then? Because how about no, right? And I think it can be used. I think it doesn't take a very hard pivot for it to be used against that evil other group of people that they're able to manufacture whenever they want. I was shocked at how quick the anti-vaxxer terminology took off. And it's crazy because they have all sorts of these smears lined up and ready to go. And the general public seems to just go along with it. Oh, you're not one of those, are you? And it's like, wow, really? We're going to do that now? Anyway, there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, Elon Musk is tweaking the X algorithm. He says algorithm tweak coming soon to promote more informational and entertaining content. We will publish the changes to the engineering X profile. Our goal is to maximize unregretted user seconds. I thought the goal was free speech. I thought the goal was to be an accurate public discussion square, right? I thought that was what it was. I didn't think it was entertaining and, what did he say? Informational and entertaining content. I thought it was the public square. I thought that was the goal. Now the goal is to maximize unregretted user seconds. You might, if you're on the wrong side of an argument, say, oh, I don't know, child rape of British girls, right? You might not want to, or you might regret all that time you spent playing cover for all those evil people who did that, right? Like, you might regret those user seconds. So I have no idea what he means by all of this, but X is not a free speech platform, and they don't even pretend to be anymore. The architect responds. He says, once again, my opinion is my own. How people take it is their problem. I have no regrets, and people who follow me seem to have no regrets. Stop trying to control speech and conversations. Just let it be, right? And that, I thought, was the initial goal of X, but darn, I guess I was wrong or lied to. Nick Fuentes is responding to this. December 2024, make Orwell fiction again, according to Elon Musk. And then in January 25, the algorithm tweak is coming. We want to maximize unregretted user seconds. Weird, right? Like, that's a little bit interesting. So what do you think about the algorithm changes on X? Awaken the Fallen says, a month ago, I made a prediction about the blue check. Yesterday, the false savior Elon limited his account to blue checks only. He is one of them, and it's all of them. You're being divided and conquered. Easy to see. So this guy says on December 2nd, 2024, remember this post. If you don't have a blue check, you will be weeded out. This has already begun. Yeah, and I mean, like, I'm heavily censored, heavily censored. My videos only get about 100 views. And like, I'm not talking my video itself gets 100 views, like the post of the video only gets exposed to 100 accounts in their scroll type deal. Like, there's no guarantee that they actually watched it or anything like that. It's just exposed to a small amount of accounts. So I am censored on this platform. Dodge Designer says, Elon Musk has just restricted replies to his post to verified users only and those mentioned in the post. He suggested this change earlier today. This will significantly reduce spam and improve comment quality. Yeah, but it changes Twitter into Facebook, essentially, right? Like, and who's interested in that? Here is Mike Benz, and he's talking about how he's worried about the censorship on X. And I thought it was a good 18 minutes. I watched it just this morning. And here he is illustrating how big of a problem this actually is. Sorry, I haven't messed it up here. He's talking about how if you don't have platform integrity or security, then nobody does, right? And he says you don't anymore on X, and if Elon doesn't fix this, it's going to be a big problem. Here we go. And he says, I love X. He's got his X merch on, and he said, like, listen, like, I want to support this company, but I can't when they do this crap. And I agree. Well, I agree that the crap they're doing is not good. I don't necessarily want to support X because I've never been uncensored from X. So here you
go. 5 accounts at the same time with hundreds of thousands of followers who had committed no terms of service violation on the platform, or at least they were not notified of any, had their entire subscriptions, all of their subscribers wiped, everything they've built because of trusting X that you should put in effort to build a subscriber base here, wiped with no explanation other than you are no longer eligible. Leaving it to the rest of us, bystanders, to try to peer through the tea leaves of which controversial opinions this collection of folks have so that we don't one day suffer the same fate. And just eyeballing that list, I would not be surprised if this collection of folks are not my biggest fan. But rules are rules. We need a foundation of platform security, or else it's very hard to have platform loyalty. It's hard to evangelize because we don't know if we're here for a good time or we're here for a long time. If this can happen to us, if one day, arbitrarily, with no violation at all, the platform decides they just don't like us. As someone who's put all of my eggs in the X Everything app basket, invested hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours just in a year to build up my subscribership, to promote X Premium everywhere, all the time, to strangers on the street, to Uber drivers when I'm on the way to a restaurant.
What can people do out there?
The best thing you can do is get...
He says, I'm being screwed. What do I say? What do I say to these people who say, I tell them that they should double down on X and it's a free speech platform. And they say, oh yeah, what about Stu Peters? What about him? What about Candace Owens? Right? So pretty crazy stuff, right? And One American News says Apple reaches a $95 million settlement over lawsuit accusing Siri of eavesdropping on consumers. Weird, right? Siri's eavesdropping on you. So if you talk about ladders and then you start getting ads for ladders, that was Siri all along. Well, we knew that, didn't we? Weird stuff going on. Mark Miller. Okay, let's talk about Canada. We've got some heavy Canadian news to take us through until we get to the drones. And the drones is the craziest friggin' story. I was almost going to start with it because it's so crazy. Anyway, Mark Miller says, I don't get this. Not the biggest surprise in the world to see these two greasy walruses promote each other's ego. Is this where we're headed? Weird. Mark Miller isn't he the immigration minister, or is he? Yeah, Minister of Immigration. And he's calling people greasy walruses, not just people. Jordan Peterson, who's probably one of the most famous Canadians in the world right now, and Pierre Poilievre, Mark Miller's political opponent and leader of the opposition. Aren't there rules about going after leader of the opposition? Doesn't Justin Trudeau cry foul if down ticket shadow ministers or people go after him in interviews and things? And it's not just Miller, although it's just Miller calling them greasy walruses. But Irka Khalid says the same stuff. And she says, did Russia fund a recent Pierre Poilievre interview? I guess he will never know because he refuses to get his security clearance. And Dr. Jordan Peterson, says, dear Miss Khalid, watch it seriously. And so she's not going to, because they're all trying to take it down, and just take it down by saying, oh, it's bad, don't watch it. And that it's having a Streisand effect. It's actually amplifying it, which is hilarious. Yesterday, I showed you it had 21 million views on the Jordan Peterson podcast. Now, this goes into the United States, and presumably that's not all 21 million Canadian views. Now it's at 40. It's almost 40 million, 39.4 million views. So that's a huge amount of views. Again, probably not all Canadian. But the views on the video, I mean, there aren't many Americans who are going to look at that and say, oh, Pierre Poilievre, let's see what Jordan Peterson is talking about him with, right? Like it doesn't seem like a very likely interview. Probably 2/3 of who watched it are Canadian, and that's still a massive viewership. And it really kind of undermines the message of greasy walruses and, don't watch this because it's an ego stroke and this and that. It is a bit of an ego stroke. There's some interesting dodges that Jordan Peterson does with regards to, what is Canada? What is this country? What are we founded on? And what Jordan Peterson says and what I think of when I think of what Canada's founded on are two different things, which is interesting. Here is a back and forth between Pierre Poilievre and Peterson, and the similarities. I've been saying a lot that, I did that. That was my fault. I've been saying a lot that the similarities between Poilievre and Diefenbaker are many. I think he's modeling himself after a Diefenbaker-esque prime ministership. That's what he wants to be. That's his legacy. That's what he's aiming for. If he could do that, he'll be a success, kind of in his own mind. Which, again, Diefenbaker is a globalist, and I'll show you that in a second. But here's Poilievre and Peterson going back and forth. Here we go.
In the last 9 years, we've seen that's come apart. The foreign conflicts are now spilling onto our streets. I want to put an end to that. I want to say, look, we're not interested in the world's ethno-cultural conflicts. We welcome
the
people.
Shadow side of multiculturalism.
We welcome the people who come from places that have been afflicted by war, as long as they leave the war behind. And frankly, most people come here to get away from those things. So by getting back to a common sense of values and identity and reminding people that when they get here, they are Canadian first, Canada first. Leave the hyphens. We don't need to be a hyphenated society. We need to be...
So we can abandon the post-nationalist state rhetoric and presume that Canada does have a Western identity founded on the a priori principles of Western democracies, and that is a uniting...
Western democracies? I thought it was founded on God. I thought we were a Christian nation founded on God. I thought that's what we were. And I thought Jordan Peterson would talk about that. But I wanted to highlight no hyphens. He says, Poilievre says no hyphens, no hyphenated Canadian. Leave that behind. And here's Diefenbaker, same message.
Being of mixed origin, I advocated the establishment of a Canadian citizenship, an unhyphenated citizenship, a citizenship that would know no bounds or limitations, a citizenship which would not depend on blood counts. There are many who have felt that could not be achieved. And yet in 1944, after having advocated it over and over again in the House of Commons and outside, the then Prime Minister stated in August of that year that he accepted this viewpoint, and that when the war was over, the necessary measure would be established or brought before Parliament to the end that citizenship would be attained in Canada, a Canadian citizenship, strong, vital, and effective. And then there's another thing over the years that I advocated was a Bill of Rights.
So we'll just leave it there. He's before Diefenbaker, Canadians traveled on like British passports, not exactly British passports, but the Canadian citizenship wasn't passed until kind of just now, you know what I mean? Like very recently, really, which is crazy town. CTV News is reporting Liberal caucus chairs to talk to Trudeau today. Prime Minister chairing the Canada-U.S. cabinet meeting. Apparently, that's January 3rd. That's yesterday. So, how did that conversation go? It seems, not great. Oh, here's the headline for the National Post: Endgame, and it's got Trudeau like in black and white, right? It looks like he's done, according to the National Post. Trudeau's leadership endgame, and so we'll see. We'll see if this will be the scandal to get rid of Trudeau. And again, I think that they're doing their best to make it so they can maintain leadership. They don't want to prorogue because they've got bills that are in process that they want to pass. So they don't want to prorogue if they feel like they can save the bill. But I feel like they know they won't be able to get anything done with Trudeau as leader. So I think that they're hoping that they can prorogue, then start the business of government again with a new leader, not be filibustered by Poilievre, and get C-63 passed, and then go for an election. But even just saying it's too long. Why hasn't Justin Trudeau stepped down yet? You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things. So, and we need an election, and it's not gonna wait until a passage of C-63. The Mark Carney saw the newspaper headlines and has decided that he's going to start making phone calls talking about Liberal leadership. The reason he's making phone calls, of course, is because you can't see his yellow teeth over the phone. Toronto Star is reporting Mark Carney calls dozens of Liberal MPs as he considers a leadership bid. So he didn't call Freeland, I bet. They're competitors, right? So Jagmeet Singh says, Elon Musk and other billionaires back Pierre Poilievre because if he wins, they'll get richer. Really? Poilievre is clear in this interview that he will cut healthcare and more. He will cut it from you and to give to CEOs what they want. The middle class will pay even more than the rich will get even richer. And I don't think so. I think fundamentally the policies that Poilievre is putting forward have been found to be more sound than the policies that we've been living under for the last 10 years under the Liberals. So it's just baseless. It's just a baseless attack that is just meant to foment fear. Jagmeet Singh again, he says, once again, the Conservatives and Jordan Peterson are coming for women's rights. This fall, Poilievre and the Conservatives voted against abortion again, and now this. Why are we talking about abortion? Abortion is the issue that the Conservatives, that the NDP and the Liberals want to run on because they own the conversation. You can't have a conversation about abortion honestly at all, period. It's framed as women's health care and somehow a sacred cow, and you can't talk about it honestly whatsoever. Somehow women being free is them having a good job and paying taxes to the man, not living at home that is paid for by the husband's single salary, raising their children and making sure that all of the jobs that need to get done in the household are done. And it's not an easy job. Like, you have to connect with your kids' school and make sure that everything's going well there. You have to clean the house. You have to manage the house. You get bills, pay all of that. Like, you have to bookkeep for the house. There's all sorts of really important jobs that happen in the house that can't be taxed by the government. So why not? Why not have a situation where one salary is enough to have a household and enough groceries and vacations, car, and education for your kids, and have everybody working on the same team? It's like OnlyFans, but with one guy, right? Like, why not? How is working for a living better? And the counter argument, of course, is that if you mess up and have the wrong guy and he starts beating you up, then you have no options. You're a trapped woman, and that assumes that there's no other resources and no other family, which in some cases is true. But I don't know, is the trade worth it? And I'm not saying in my idealized world, women and men would have equal access to jobs if they wanted to have a job. If they wanted to go out and work, they would be able to find work, because like nobody would be saying, no, we can't hire you because you're a woman. But we would have an economy that allowed people to run their household on a single income and not need to work if they didn't want to work. Does that make sense? So I'm not saying, oh, why can't we have oppressive standards where men tell women what to do and they're barefoot and pregnant in my kitchen running my household? That's not it at all. I think that if everybody's on the same team pulling for the same result, that's better. And like, let's all work together rather than being divided and having that very, explosive position, combative position, right? Like the two people are at odds rather than working together on the same thing. Some of the best teachers from my childhood memories are people who had kids and then came into teaching after they had raised all their kids because they understood kids in a way that like teachers who are 22 and who've been book learned or book taught about children have no idea about kids. They're kind of like, oh, they're sticky and ooh, right? Whereas like other teachers who have been moms have Kleenexes in their pocket, right? It's a small difference, but it makes a lot of difference. Brian Lilly says, former NDP staff. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that you understand that I'm not anyway. Brian Lilly continues. Former NDP staffers and campaign workers mount petition calling on Jagmeet Singh to actually vote down the Trudeau government this time and not just talk about it. This is not a Babylon Bee headline. It sounds like a Babylon Bee headline, right? Like it's pretty funny, but he does talk an awful lot and doesn't actually do very much at all ever. Here's Maxime Bernier, and he's talking about abortion too, which is interesting. And he says, in Canada today, it does take courage to talk about protecting the unborn who legally can be aborted, quote, minutes before birth. Bernier charged into political taboo territory. All three party leaders are pro-abortion. Maxime Bernier is not. And so, yeah, that's a difference, right? So it's funny that on one hand, and I think that it's true that the Liberals own the conversation on abortion because they frame it as women's health care. And if you want to take away abortion, you're taking away women's health care, and it's an instrumental thing that we need to use, and so on and so forth. And so coming out this way is, well, not done very often in Canadian politics. And will it be popular? Do you think people will talk about it? And do you think it would be enough to change people's opinions and move people to vote for the People's Party instead? I don't know. I don't know if it's enough. It's interesting that no other political parties want to talk about it. In 1987, the Morgan Teller decision put the responsibility onto the House of Commons to come up with a way to protect that class of person, because it used to be a criminal offense to abort a baby in Canada prior to 1967 or 69. I can't remember which one, but in the 1960s, Pierre Elliott Trudeau came in and removed that. And then, so now Morgan Teller said, basically, it's my right to abort these babies on behalf of the women, so on and so forth. And the Supreme Court said, yeah, I guess you've got a point there. But it kicked it back to the House of Commons to come up with a law that protected that class of citizen. And, well, they just didn't. And they haven't ever since. They said, basically, the Supreme Court decided, and that's that. And we're not going to talk about it ever again anymore, period. So will the abortion debate be opened up? No, Poilievre has already said that he will not open that debate up in the House of Commons. Don't worry, women's healthcare is safe, right? So pretty interesting. Here's Brett. He says, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith says, quote, the Charter also says you can restrict people's rights if you're reasonable, if it's proportionate, and if it's evidence-based. And that's what we're going to do. She's talking about ordering drug addicts into care. Do you think this is a good reason to violate people's rights? I think we should get rid of the section of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms that renders it useless on a whim of politicians. Plenty of evidence that during the coronavirus mandates and lockdowns. Bad take here, Danielle. What's your game, Danielle Smith? Yeah, I'm not interested. What they're going to do is they're going to say anti-vaxxers are dangerous and we should put them into treatment facilities to treat them and avail them of their dangerous thoughts. Racists are dangerous and we should put them in facilities and treat them for their racist thoughts. And we're being proportional, and it's backed by evidence. It's evidence-based and backed by science. All of these scientists agree climate change is a real thing that's happening, and you have to go to treatment to believe it. Okay? So it's one of those things. I don't agree with Danielle Smith whatsoever. Let's let her say it. Let's hear it from the proverbial horse's mouth. Here we go.
Now, there are going to be some judges, some people who will take that to the court, say you can't force someone to take treatment against their will. The Charter prevents that. Other jurists say, you know what, that's a bad decision. And you should be able to force people to take treatment rather than have them out in the street with the knives and the hypo and the illegal drugs.
We're prepared to make the argument. The Charter also says you can restrict people's rights if you're reasonable, if it's proportionate, and if it's evidence-based. And that's what we're going to do. We've provided the evidence already that our recovery model is saving lives. We just announced a 53% year-over-year decline in deaths from last year. We have a 51% decline in deaths from people who are leaving our corrections facilities after going through the recovery program. There's the evidence. And we're just not going to sit back and watch people kill themselves. We believe that we've got to give people another lease on life, and that means ordering them into care.
Now they're going to be...
You could just take away their drugs, right? You don't have to necessarily order them into care. I don't think that's necessary. You could say to them, we care about you, and when you're ready, and we'll take you right now if you want. If you're ready right now, we'll take you right now. But when you're ready, treatment is there for you, and we'd love you to go to treatment, but it's voluntary. But we're not going to give you any drugs anymore. We're not going to give you any money to support this lifestyle. We're not going to support you being a drug addict on the streets. We're not going to give you money for it. We're not going to turn a blind eye to it. We're going to arrest you for carrying drugs. We're going to treat you like a criminal. And that's going to be a hard road. And we hope that you don't do that. We'll give you treatment if you want treatment. But if you choose to be a criminal to get your drugs, then we'll treat you like the criminal that you're behaving as. But we want you to get treatment. And maybe you say, well, you can't do that, and it's harmful to those people down the road that he may victimize because you're not willing to already throw him in treatment. But maybe he'll go to the treatment. Maybe he'll do it voluntarily. Maybe that'll work better because he's invested in the treatment and he knows that people care about him, and it's not a power play anymore, right? It's not a you have to do this because we told you to do this. And also, they can't do it to other populations that you may not like or they may not like. People like me, right, who say things they don't like, right? Oh, wow, that's a sick thing to think, Mark. Why don't you think climate change is real, right? Everybody says it's real. You must be sick, No, I'm not sick. I just disagree with your conclusions. And that is my opinion. And I'm allowed to have that. I'm not sick. But they're going to treat it as an illness, and they're going to try and throw people in a gulag. And it's the same thing for your safety, of course, comrade, for your health and safety. And because it's for your health, it's much more important, right? Unbelievable stuff. I think just taking away the drugs will do a lot of. Danielle Smith says the evidence is all of these people, 50% reduction in deaths and so on and so forth. That's wonderful. But I think that it's just the taking away drugs from people, not giving it away for free. Maybe not. Western Standard says Health Canada approves its first safe consumption site in Regina. Here's some free drugs, right? And treatments. Don't go to the free drug site by the government. Step one. In treatment, right? Like, come on. Maybe the free drugs should be ended because it's a bad policy that kills Canadians. True North is reporting Alberta NDP leader Nenshi has announced his bid for the nomination in the Edmonton-Strathcona riding, aiming to secure former Alberta Premier Rachel Notley's riding after taking over the helm of the party last year. I'd love for him to lose, but I mean, Danielle Smith's such a wet blanket that he's going to win. So Nenshi is going to be in the legislature in the coming sitting, and then watch out, because I mean, he was the mayor, right, of Calgary for a while. And was he popular? I mean, I don't think so, but he was a media darling, right? And so people will be lied to, and all of the institutions will be turned to support this woke nonsense. So we're not out of the woods yet, folks. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful